Muy buenos días, bueno, buenas tardes con todos. Muchísimas gracias por estar presentes el día de hoy, ya a una semana de terminar el año. Les agradecemos realmente su tiempo. Queremos agradecer también a Pierre, están acompañándome también Celio y Numo de la empresa Dolphins, quienes nos van a dar el día de hoy una charla bastante interesante. Pero previo a eso, quería darles algunos anuncios. Bueno, como ustedes saben, tuvimos que reagendar nuestra cena anual, digamos, con la entrega de los premios Gaia, que es lo que veníamos como parte del SPE Training Program segunda edición. Esto debido a que tenemos la presencia una vez más de nuestro presidente de la SPE Internacional en el Ecuador, el ingeniero Terry Palish. Él estará presente para eh, la entrega de los premios Gaia y para hacer algunos anuncios importantes para este año 2024. Este año que viene tenemos varias sorpresas que espero nos puedan seguir en nuestras redes sociales y páginas. Tenemos eventos muy importantes que van a posicionar aún más a la seccional Ecuador frente a la comunidad internacional. Así que estén atentos, no les queremos adelantar mucho porque también queremos que nos sigan en nuestras redes sociales, en nuestras páginas. Eh, Somos una comunidad de más de 130.000 miembros a nivel mundial y en el Ecuador estamos bordeando ya los 500 miembros. Así que somos el segundo país en Latinoamérica con el mayor número de miembros de petróleo y gas. Así que eso ha llamado muchísimo la atención de la SPI Internacional. No les quiero aburrir más, simplemente al ser ya el último webinar de este año, desearles a todos eh, unas lindas fiestas, bendecidas fiestas y que este nuevo 2024 esté lleno de salud, de muchas bendiciones y muchos desafíos que tenemos todos y que pues se puedan cumplir todo lo que nos hemos propuesto en este nuevo año. Así que sin más, para no aburrirlo, queremos agradecer. Pir está escuchándonos desde el otro lado del mundo, ya casi con sueño, 9 horas más tarde de acá, así que queremos agradecerles. Eh, Vamos a empezar el día de hoy. Vamos a hablar respecto a un tema que ha venido llamando la atención a, a muchos de los operadores y empresas de servicios, que es la inspección de taladros. Este tema salió desde alguno de los scout meetings que realizamos con los operadores del pedido para realizar esto. Así que hemos buscado a las mejores empresas que están dentro del mundo para realizar este tipo de explicación, este tipo de entendimiento, y vamos a empezar justamente con la empresa Dolphin, quien generosamente nos está colaborando el día de hoy. Bueno, Pierre Develay, espero pronunciarlo bien. am, él tiene un Master Degree en Ingeniería Civil con un año de especialización en Ingeniería en Petróleos y más de 10 años de experiencia en el sector de oil and gas. Su carrera inició como ingeniero supervisor de construcciones junior en proyectos en Francia y Laos. Luego, él se unió a Total Energy en Yemen en el Departamento de Ingeniería de Petróleos y en el 2015 Pierre se une en la industria de perforación con Dolphins, liderando la compañía de servicios en este sector. Él empezó en esta compañía como ingeniero de operaciones. Dentro de sus responsabilidades estaba la inspección de taladros dentro de algunos activos, Land Rigs para la sexta generación de drill, y fue ascendido como jefe de la división de inspección de Dolphins durante los 3 años después de asumir su posición, hasta ser ahora el líder del servicio de Oil and Gas en 2023. Una trayectoria impecable de Pira, ha crecido como la espuma, entiendo igual que la compañía. En resumen, la presentación lo que nos va a llevar es, como les mencionaba, un tema interesante respecto a la eficiencia, la minimización de tiempos no productivos y consecuentemente la entrega del pozo liderado sin lugar a duda al incremento de producción. Así que, sin más, Vamos a darle la bienvenida, Pierre. Thank you very much for your time. Welcome for this webinar. I'm pretty sure that everybody's going to be ready just to learn about your experience and also the experience of dolphins. I'm going to be with Celio and Nuno as well. They are going to be with me because I am not an expert in drilling. So they are going to be in the webinar in case that there is any a specialized question. They are going to support me in the answers. So welcome, Pierre, and up to you.
Muchas gracias, Fernando. Lo siento, no hablo muy bien español, entonces tengo que hacer la presentación en inglés. Muchas gracias por su comprensión. Thank you again, Fernando, for the introduction. I will share my screen. Just let me know if you see properly the presentation here. Okay. So the subject today is rig inspection, and more specifically how we can optimize the non-productive time, reduce non-productive time, and obviously leading to increase in production. So the agenda for today will be an introduction of Dolphin, our company, and to understand better why we are talking about rig inspection, where we come from. What is a rig inspection, how it's done, when it's done, the importance and the benefit of rig inspection. So what are the outcomes of a rig inspection and how we can impact positively operations, how we can enhance and make a rig inspection more efficient. And last but not least, we'll discuss a specific case study that we did for one of our clients on top drive NPT improvement. So briefly about Dolphin Group. Dolphin Group has been founded over more than 20 years ago. Today we are structured a bit differently than what we started. We started mainly in the drilling industry. Today we have 3 branches. One is called 8.2, which is a company we acquired 1 year ago, which is specialized in a renewable sector. So offshore wind, onshore wind, and solar, providing expertise, inspection, etc. The other one that we acquired recently is ISG, specialized in QHSE consulting, providing training and audit in cross sectors, so renewable and oil and gas. And origin of Dolphin is, of course, oil and gas and drilling in particular. And it's a company providing engineering, audit, consulting, and expertise, mainly in the drilling business. So we have, as I mentioned, we are cross-sector, so renewable since 5 years and oil and gas since already 20 years. So we decided to develop as well the renewable business because it's very important to focus on the energy transition. Our capabilities, we are experts in HSE, maintenance, project management, documentary control, structure, engineering, methods, etc. And the service we provide we provide a wide range of services, always focusing on expertise, so technical support, project management, audit, inspection, engineering, training, advisory. Again, today, the main focus will be on one of our branch that we created 15 years ago, which is the inspection division. So we do rig inspection on several types of rigs, from land rigs to drill ship. And as of today, we have performed inspection in more than 50 countries and more than 800 units. So we have accumulated an extensive experience on this particular domain. So what is a rig inspection? So a rig inspection is a very vague, I would say, term. It can define many things, but what we call a rig inspection is an audit that is conducted on a drilling rig, can be a land rig, a jackup, a drill ship, and it's to verify, to ensure that the equipment and the condition of the rig has been properly maintained and is operating within the international standard and the OEMs and the regulation, local regulation that any country can have. It covers the entire rig, not only a specific equipment, but the overall asset. I will come back later on that. When it is done, so to understand when it's done, first we need to look at the conventional drilling and workover project timeline. So we have the pre-tender stage, we have the call for tender, the contract award, and then the drilling and or workover operation. So when a rig audit is required, depends the client, but usually we perform inspection during the pre-selection survey. So before even the call for tender, we advise our client on which rig would be more suitable for their campaign. Then once the client has issued a tender and has shortlisted maybe 3 or 4 rigs, they want us to have an overview of the rigs and see the major showstopper for their operation and eventually advise on the more suitable asset for their campaign. Now, 90% of our inspection are done during the acceptance, so just before the drilling and the drilling operation starts. So we do an extensive inspection that covers both documentation, maintenance, visual inspection, and extensive testing. We do as well an integration test to try to simulate as much as possible the future drilling operation. Then if the campaign is quite consequent and lasts more than 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, eventually more, we can do like some periodic condition survey. So it's kind of a health check of the rig during the campaign. How it is done? Usually it's conducted by 2 until 5 experts, depending on the rig. Of course, drill ship, we need to have more specialized people in well control, in marine, in dynamic positioning. For land rig, it's usually 1 mechanical, electrical specialist, and sometimes a well control. It lasts 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the asset, can last even more, 2 months. And the main aspects that are inspected, audited, first we do an inspection and audit on the documentation and the certification. So it's basically doc control to verify that the rig is compliant. We do as well a visual inspection. So I just put some overall duration for you to have an understanding. The condition is a visual condition, so we verify the bearing clearance, we check for corrosion, we check for damage. Can be very extensive, can be like opening equipment and going into details, or more an overall visual inspection. We do function tests on individual equipments, and endurance test, which integrates all the equipment running together to try to simulate as much as we can the drilling operation. And when we have specific audits, such as specific well control, BOP equipment audit, and as well a quality management system audit, focusing on the management of the rig and especially on the maintenance system. Why we do this aspect is because we realize that by auditing a quality management system, we can predict a bit better how the rig will evolve through the campaign, and not only at the moment we do the inspection. So what is the outcome of a classic rig inspection? So we have a daily report that we send every day to present the findings, the look ahead. We have a non-conformity list, which this is I would say the most important document that usually our client and the contractor are, of course, checking every day, is the list of deficiency of problems that we found on the rig, as you can see here, with the pictures, with recommendation, and with a level of criticality, sorry. And then a final report that summarizes the overall inspection. So this is the output of the rig inspection. This is a chart to give you a bit of an idea of, we took the last 10 inspection we did on land rigs, and we added all the deficiencies. So we had around 1,100 deficiencies, and we wanted to show what are the main contributors and the main issues that we found on the rigs. What you can see here, I'm sorry if the colors are not very clear, but 13% are related to well control. So well control is usually a major issue in most of the rigs we inspect. Hoisting and rotating, obviously, which impacts, of course, the drilling operation, because if the top drive has a problem, you need to shut down the rig and fix it. We have as well several issues on the mud system. And of course, HSE and safety issues are major on most of the rigs we inspect. Power generation. So basically what you can see here is that most of the issue we found will have an impact on the performance of the rig, and therefore will have an impact on the non-productive time. So why we do a rig inspection? Or why our client call us to do a rig inspection? So there are several, as I mentioned, depending on the timeline. The first one is pre-selection of the rig. Before issuing a tender, they want to shortlist a couple of rigs to be invited for the call for tender. And because we have a database of a lot of inspection and we know a lot of rigs, we can give as well an advice based on what we see. Then once the 2-3 rigs are shortlisted, we can do what we call the pre-hire survey. So we do a condition survey of the pre-listed rig, and we try to highlight the major showstopper to be fixed in case of contract award. Then as well, something that comes very often is the last phase of commissioning of a new built rig or a recently reactivated rig or refurbished rig. Our client noticed, the operators, that there is a lot of issues when the rig just went out of new build or just after leaving the shipyard. So they want us to follow up on the last phase of the construction or on the refurbishment. As well, sometimes the drilling contractor, we are not really often our clients, but sometimes they ask us advisory and inspection before stacking a rig because it's their asset, it's their investment, so they want to make sure it's properly preserved. Sometimes as well, they want to reactivate the rig, so they ask us to do an inspection and to make sure they are following a proper procedure to reactivate the rig. And as I mentioned earlier, most of our inspections are done just before the commencement of the operation, which is the acceptance. So just before start of operation. So this is why we do inspection. Now, what are the real benefits? So let's say we did a high-level rig inspection. When I say high level, is that we send some expert, we spend some time on the rig, we highlighted many deficiencies. So what is the output of a high-level inspection? So of course, first there is the cost for the operator or even the contractor. It costs money, let's say for a land rig around $30,000 to do a rig inspection. That's the overall budget to have an idea. And what else? Then what we issue, a list of recommendation. So we issue a recommendation related to HSE, recommendation and deficiencies related to documentation, recommendation related to maintenance and quality management system, on competency of the crew, and tests that either pass or fail. So this is really the output when client order a rig inspection. This is what we give. Now, how this has a positive impact on operation or NPT? This highly depends on the remedials, how the rig contractor will take into account our recommendation and implement corrective action. But let's say he implements corrective action on the HSE recommendation. As I mentioned, we had around 12% of HSE issues when we do an inspection. If they put in place the recommendation, they will have most probably less incident and better HSE performance. On the documentation, they will have a better compliance with standards for their insurance or for their contract with the operator. On the maintenance, we noticed with our inspection when the contractor take into account the recommendation on the maintenance system or the deficiency that we list and take corrective action, it will reduce the long-term NPT. It's not a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing. It's the overall system that needs to be improved. On the competency of the crew, it will improve the operational NPT. For example, for rig move, we see when the crew are well trained to make new connection, etc. They reduce the operational NPTs. And the very important aspect is the test, the function test and acceptance test. And this we see there is a positive impact when we debug the rig on the short-term NPT, meaning if you do comprehensive tests just before starting the operation, you have less chance to have issues at the start of operation. So, okay, these are the things that can be implemented by the contractor. So what it gives? Basically, one thing that is evident: less incident, better HSE performance, better health and safety, right? But what else? We see a lot of NPTs, contractual eventually problems, but mainly long-term reduction NPT and short-term reduction NPT. So all this implies more savings. I'm sorry, I'm putting a big logo because I know it's important for any business, cost saving. And we really notice that if you do a comprehensive inspection, there will be cost savings. And I will explain you why. So why we save doing a rig inspection? So as I mentioned, I took, for example, here, these are the NPT on 5 wells in Iraq, in Zubair field. So we see that we have like NPT related to well problems, NPT related to rig failures, surface equipment, downhole equipment, and others. If we take the split, 40% of the NPT for these wells are related to rig failures and equipment failures, 40%, which correspond to more or less 10 days. These wells were drilled in around, I think, 50 or 80 days. What does it mean? Our inspection, of course, don't really impact well problems, downhole equipment failure. We are not going to make a link with inspection and downhole equipment failure, even though they could be. But rig failure and surface equipment failure, definitely the rig inspection can improve that. So let's say we did inspection on this rig that drilled these wells, and we managed to, by doing a comprehensive inspection, just reduce by 30% the NPT related to rig failures, equipment failure, which is equivalent to 3 days. We have a conservative approach. 10 days, it's quite consequent. So let's say doing a proper corrective action, proper inspection, prepare in advance, we can save 3 days. Let's say the average production of this well is 1,500 barrels a day. The rig rate around 35,000 USD a day. So these are just hypotheses. And the oil price, 80 USD a day. If we sum up all that, the delay of producing a well, so for some operators, when they have license expiring soon and not renewed, this has a major impact of delaying the delivery of the well. The day rate of the rig, so just for 3 days saving, the estimated savings are around 460,000 USD. So why I mentioned these numbers, that of course can be challenged, and of course there is nothing 100% sure, but what I want to emphasize here is that we all know basics of investments. So when you take it as the rig inspection, not as a cost, but as an investment, if you invest $30,000 on the rig inspection, there is high chance that your return on this investment will generate maybe 1,000 ROI. So these, of course, are numbers, estimation, hypotheses, and it's very difficult to quantify the real benefit because NPTs are complicated as well to calculate, and each failure needs to be identified clearly. But we know that rig inspection is a small cost compared to the overweight of the intangible cost of non-productive time or incident. And this is really what we want to emphasize, is that it's not a cost, it's an investment. Investment on safety, investment on savings, and on delivery and excellence of your operation. So how we understand that, okay, rig inspection, we know what it is, we know what are the benefits. So how we make it better? How can we enhance rig inspection? So of course, the service provider is important. There are companies specialized doing this. We have our competitors doing it. So we need a professional company. You need expert with extensive experience who knows the rig, the equipment. You need engineers with training and a back office support. And you need as well a company with a strong deficiency database. Why? Because we have inspected, for example, 800 rigs. Each rig is around 100 deficiency. We are talking about 80,000 deficiencies. So thanks to this database, we know more or less what kind of issues are coming often on the rigs, on the equipment, and we can anticipate them by doing an inspection based on our deficiency database. You have the preparation that is very important and most often neglected. Every rig is different. Every environment is different. Every contractor is different. Regulation are different. So there is a big part of preparation for the rig inspection to make tailored checklist. Then the inspection itself, having more resource, more time, a bit more scope. Sometimes our client, they don't necessarily want to perform tests, or they don't want to do crew competency because it's kind of a savings for them. Then the frequency. We notice that most of our inspections occur only once every start of operation or once every 5 years when the rig goes to major maintenance. And if you increase the frequency of rig inspection, and today we even have operators who have their own team of rig inspector roving around different rigs because they know the added value of it. So increasing the frequency is as well important. Okay, you will understand all that means increase the budget for rig inspection, better service provider, more time on site, more scope, etc. But so let's say you increase your budget for rig inspection by 50%, which is going from 30,000 to 50,000, let's say. We remember what we just said before, it's a cost, but it's as well an investment. And at the end, increasing the budget, it's very marginal compared to the benefit that it can add. We are in an industry where the numbers are huge, scale is huge. A well producing 1,000 barrels a day, delaying the well has a major impact on the overall annual budget of the operator. Of course, there are some operators who have the license for life, national operators, but some operators are constrained and they have a license that's limited. When I was working for Total Yemen, our license was expiring, so every single day was important. So another important aspect of the rig inspection is the remedials. And as a rig inspection company, we don't really have the hand on the remedials. And this is the decision of the oil and gas operator together with the rig inspection company and the drilling contractor to make sure the deficiencies are closed or to list the one they can live with. And this is always a big discussion, like which deficiencies should be closed or not. Of course, we advise all of them to be closed, but this, of course, has an impact. So this is a big importance on the rig inspection, is how the remedials are taken care of. And every time we do an inspection, we associate the deficiency with standards. Sometimes there are no standards. It's just good old field practice or based on our database or experience. And there is always a conflict between operators, the third party, and the contractor to close the deficiencies. But we'll understand how later on we can control that. Sometimes as well, we have operators who ask us to witness the closeout of the deficiencies to make sure that the rig starts with all the issues closed out before the start of operation. So now we understood how we can make a rig inspection better, but what the question we always have is, okay, how you can compare a good rig inspection and a bad rig inspection, or a company providing a good service and a bad service, and based on what? So this is a very tricky question because, as we mentioned, it has an impact on NPT, right? But it's not something you can immediately measure. So you do an inspection and the result will take time to notice on the performance of the rig. So for that, there are standards. There are regulations, recommended practice, and for equipment, it's pretty much well, I would say, organized. So we have equipment specification and design for manufacturing that are common with offshore and onshore rigs. So the specification of API for F, 8B, 16D, 7K, etc. We have ATEX specification for electrical equipment in explosive atmosphere. We have ISO as well, who have some standards. Then we have the same for the maintenance part. So recommended practice for maintenance, which are pretty well written. IHC guidelines, same ASME or API, and other certification related to offshore only. So all that is not the law. Again, we need to really differentiate like recommended practice specification and the local regulation of the country. Some countries we worked with, and they said, we don't care about API. This is not something that we follow, or it's not inside our drilling contract with the operator. So we don't need to follow API RP 4G, for example. We don't need to follow the standard 53 because it's not a law of the country. And that's where we go into the, I would say, the part that can be improved, in my opinion, in this industry is how the entire asset is regulated. So offshore, there are several local national regulatory agencies, like in US, we have the BSEE, in Norway, we have the NORSOC, in Australia, the NOPSEMA. In France as well, we have some specific regulation and laws for offshore operation only. So then you have the certification of class in the offshore business. A rig owner engage in a classification society, such as ABS, DNV, BV, etc., to review the design, and as well to attest that the rig has been properly designed, constructed, and maintained. And this class needs to be renewed. So the entire asset offshore for jackup, drill ship, semis, because it pertains to the marine industry, there is a lot more regulation. Let's say you have a rig that has all the certificate of class, which is mandatory, as the OVID certificate, as the statutory, the flag certificate. It's already a good indication, and plus needs to respect the laws, the local regulation. It's a good indication that you have less risk to face a problem because there is already a regulation behind. Now, onshore is completely different. In many countries, not all, of course, but in many countries, you can take a rig and go drill, and there is no control on how the rig is maintained. If the rig has certificate, there is no law in the country. Let's take the example of a car, for example. Most of the countries, every year, your car, you need to go through a service specific in order to obtain the right to drive your car for 1 year. And every year, you need to do this service to avoid having car who drives in the road that are not properly maintained and can cause issues and incidents, right? The land rig business, there is very poor regulation in most of the countries. So anyone can take a rig and start drilling, and the equipment is not maintained, putting at risk the health and safety of the people, and as well impacting, of course, the operation and eventually the environment. So the impact on the environment on land, of course, it's different than offshore, but still, we have seen incidents and we know incidents in the past that have been terrible, with blowout, with H2S, killing several people. So there is a potential impact, and it's not, in my opinion, and not enough regulated. The equipment themselves are regulated, but not the overall asset. How we can do that? What are the solutions? So the main solution is to improve the local and national regulation. Let's say a country decided to put in place a regulation, a legislation, and a standard for drilling rigs in their country, and make it mandatory for any contractor and operator who are drilling to have a rig that match certain requirement. Certain requirement that covers like the documentation, the minimum documentation to have, the minimum requirement for the maintenance system, the minimum requirement for the condition, the function tests that are mandatory to pass before starting operation, and the quality and HSE management system. The same way companies ISO 9001, we could have a similar standard or similar standard for the overall asset. And this is not very complicated to do, and some countries, of course, have their own legislation, again, mainly for offshore. So you can use a special company to draft this elaboration of the standard, of this rule, these guidelines, and you can have each rig in your country operating. You can ask a professional inspection company, any company, to verify that the rig is compliant with the standard, and eventually deliver a dedicated certificate that this rig is compliant with this regulation in this country, or this international standard in this country. So this will avoid having to really, I would say, give the doubt of the choice of the inspection company, of the expert, because you make sure that the rig is following a standard. So to summarize, we mentioned that there was NPTs, several types of NPTs. There is the one that we focus on today is mainly rig failures and equipment failures. If we use a professional inspection company, if we increase the budget, if we use local and national regulations, or we implement national and local regulation, using as well international recommended practice such as API, making sure they are implemented, and perform periodic audit with eventually an issuance of a rig certificate every year. Ultimately, there will be cost savings for the company, for the operator, the contractor eventually, the improved performance on HSE, and something that is as well important is trying to reach excellence. So there are some countries who have very high standard, companies who have very high standard because they want to reach excellence, which is a value, a core value for many companies. So I just want to put this into perspective with a case study that we did for a drilling contractor, one of our clients. So they had a lot of issues on the top drives, a lot of NPTs, and we discussed with them. We said, okay, we're gonna make a tailored inspection plan and checklist with 39 specific points, taking into account the top drive model, the local regulation, the environment where the rig is, the international standard, the procedure, the maintenance system, the database as well of 800 inspection that we did, the analysis of the non-productive time, where it comes from. So we tailored a specific 39 checkpoints and listed in different categories, HSE, documentation, etc. So we created this inspection scope. We inspected a total of 54 rigs. The output was that 57% of the rigs were non-compliant. I mean, 57% of non-compliance on the rigs. Most of the issues were HSE related, scheduled preventive maintenance, electrical issues, documentation, mechanical issues, and other less impactful categories. Some with very high risk that needs to be immediately corrected, 38%, and some serious, around 720 serious deficiencies, 300 major, etc. Total of 1,000 non-compliant points. So thanks to this audit that was quite consequent, we managed to identify the key NPT contributors. What is leading to failure of the top drives and NPTs? We noticed that there was some scheduled PM tasks that were missing. We saw issues with AC motors that could be rectified. We saw like issues with the after overall. So I'm just listing the main issues without going into details of every single point, that every single recommendation that need to be rectified, issues on the service loop, etc., etc. So we listed all these NPT contributors, and for each contributor, we have put in place recommendation, meaning if you apply this recommendation, you have a high chance of reducing all your NPTs. And the conclusion was like, okay, maintenance is an investment, inspection is an investment, but it's here to improve the performance of the operation and increase at the end company profitability. So again, to summarize, it's always the same schematic. You have issues related to NPT issues related to equipment. They chose a professional company. They increase their budget for inspection. They tailor the checklist. They increase the inspection preparation scope. They have as well followed international standards, recommended practice, and they did periodic audits on the top drives. So all that contributing to better performance on the NPT side, so increased savings, increased HSE statistics, and ultimately getting closer and closer to excellence. So to really summarize the whole presentation, what we are trying to say is that rig inspection is not just a cost or a check to do. it's really an investment for your HSE performance, your excellence as a company and as operators or contractors that ultimately will be beneficial. And it's a very minor investment compared to the benefits. So thank you for your attention. If you have any question, please feel free. I hope I was clear. And yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, thank you, Pierre. An outstanding presentation. Thank you very much. It has been very useful just to learn something that probably or mainly we are not familiarized here in Ecuador. And just to leave open the chat for the questions, I just want to start with a quick question for you and maybe for Nuno and Celio. In your experience, what are the most clients, the EOCs or the NOCs? And the second question is, in Latin America, the experience is just being focused on Brazil, as far as I know, or do you have another, or can you share more experience in another countries in Latin America?
Thank you, Fernando. So it's a very good question. I will start answering, and maybe Celio and Nuno can add. So if it's more IOC, NOC, I would say that most of our clients are international oil companies. I think because, as I mentioned earlier, for them, the well delivery is very important because they have licenses. And when I was working with Total Yemen, we knew that the license was expiring for this block. So we knew that every single well needs to be delivered on time because it's a big loss. So they are really focused on inspection. National oil company as well, but some are so massive that they have internalized this service. And they are performing it themselves. So I would say, to answer your question, is mainly international oil company. And another reason I would say is because the fact that we are a third party independent, for a national oil company, it doesn't really matter this concept of independence. But when it's two private companies, the fact that we are third party independent has, I would say, a better impact on the drilling contractor. Now, for your second question, in Latin America, Celio can complement what I will say, but we worked, of course, in Brazil. We worked in Argentina, in Colombia, in Peru, many other countries, and what we found is that there is a real interest in rig inspection. I think because maybe again, and it's not. I would say it's not because we have some clients they just do rig inspection just because it's part of their process. But in Latin America, what we've seen is it's the rig inspection is done really in the sense of improving the performance. And we have inspected I think in the past a rig in Ecuador in 2012, but it was for a client in Peru. So Celio, maybe you can add things about Latin America.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, just an example, in Ecuador, we won the last ENAP Ecuador rig inspection bidding. So our contact there was in that time was Guido. I forgot the second name. He is the ENAP Ecuador drilling manager. But of course, beside Brazil, because Brazil we have more offshore operations, and we had worked for the main Argentinian companies, international company drilling contractors or operators, but not only Argentina, Brazil, Peru, Bolivia also. We have worked for YPFB, Chaco, Andina Corporation, and actually we are exploring the Guyana and Suriname market also, where we signed a representation contract with a local company. So we are exploring opportunities there also.
Yeah, and to add something about Latin America, in Argentina, we have started as well discussion with IAPG, so Instituto Argentino del Petróleo y Gas, on this, what I was mentioning, on this regulation, especially for well control. How can we regulate the well control equipment in Argentina? So this discussion with some entities, local entities, are very, very important, in my opinion. So we started with Argentina, but then situation got a bit complicated there.
Great. This is a really good idea, and this is the main purpose here also in Ecuador, just to involve not just the academy, and also just to involve the agency of the regulation, because if you don't have the regulations clear, there is nothing that you can do. So, well, it's great to know that you also have presence in Argentina and as well as in Brazil. I have a question. Let's see if I can translate it properly. Otherwise, you can Celia or Nuno can help me with that. It say that many operators ask to include the origin certificates of the well control equipment. So many times this equipment is old and it's difficult to have or to provide this type of certification. In your opinion, it is necessary to have these documents to guarantee the operativity. I mean, the operativity of the equipment.
It's a very, very, very good question. I think it's right on point because we have several similar questions related to well control. So, well control equipment is a bit particular because, of course, the document doesn't guarantee you that the equipment will be running properly. What guarantees you that the equipment will be running properly is the maintenance. So, is for example the recertification. So, if we take the well control equipment, it's quite particular because the original certificate tells you that if it's recertified by a company approved by the OEM, we know that this company will have the tolerance to recertify. So the problem with the well control is that there are some specific tolerances that are not always shared by the OEM. The OEM, such as some, if we need to say some names, such as Cameron, for example, they keep this tolerance in-house, but there is no regulation in saying that you need to recertify the equipment by the OEM. However, it says that you need to have the tolerance. If you don't have the proper tolerance, it's complicated to recertify. So now, since the industry has evolved, a lot of companies, third parties, or even competitors of Cameron have this tolerance. However, they will never be exactly the same than the original well control equipment. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I completely understand the struggle of having an equipment, a well control equipment, and being there without being able to recertify it because the vendor sometimes it's delaying and not answering. So how do you do in this situation? There are solutions. The solutions are mainly doing kind of a reverse engineering. So taking this well control equipment, asking a specific company to recertify the equipment. Then what happens is that this company will recertify the equipment and it will be the CEM, current equipment manufacturer. So we'll forget about the original equipment manufacturer, and this is accepted if they prove that they have properly calculated the tolerance and they did some reverse engineering and they can appropriate the equipment as the new current equipment manufacturer. So it's possible. When we will say as a third party, this is not acceptable, is that if, for example, this well control equipment has been more than 5 years without any documentation, any traceability, any recertification, any original certificate, then of course, most probably the equipment is not properly maintained. But if there has been done something and there is research behind, then it can be acceptable.
Yep, you answer pretty clear the question that I have. So I think that we don't have any other questions for now. I'm pretty sure that the rest, because I can see in the people that is attending, there are a lot of experts in HSC and also some operations managers. So I'm pretty sure that they are going to have more questions in the future. So just for the information of the people, the attendants, we have the contact of Pierre, Nuno, and Celio, so we can share the contacts of them if you want to have a direct contact with dolphins. And also let me tell us that this webinar is going to be held in the web page of the SPE in case that you want to see with more time, or if you want to share with people that it's not be able to attend this during this afternoon. So I just want to thank you here, Nuno and Celio. I think that we raised an important issue here in Ecuador, and I hope this is going to be just the start of the conversation for this type of rig inspection, and we can go with more and more webinars and workshops in this issue with more, I mean, agency participations and also the Minister of Energy as well.
Thank you very much, Fernando. And again, don't hesitate to contact me or Celio or Nuno if you have any question. I tried to be to summarize a bit a big subject, so most probably we can go into more details in the future. And really, do not hesitate. We are available to help.
For sure. Thank you very much. Have a good night,
Fernando.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. And Nuno, Celio, we will keep in touch. And para el resto de gente, muchísimas gracias. Esto es SPE Ecuador. Nos vemos pronto y lo mejor para este 2024.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Celio.
Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad. Gracias para ustedes también.
Gracias.